The province is set to begin salary negotiations with thousands of teachers across the province. But instead of asking for raises, the Alberta branch of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says teachers should accept a wage rollback in light of our hard economic times. Now, Paige MacPherson is the director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation in Alberta. She joins us from Calgary. And Jonathan Teghtmeyer is with the Alberta Teachers Association. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight, both of you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Paige, I want to begin with you. You have said the teachers union would be completely out of touch if they ask for a raise right now. Why is that?
Well, I think there's no question about that. We're facing a potentially $10.4 billion deficit in this province, a number so big that our finance minister couldn't even bring himself to say the number when reporters asked him about it. We also have a debt that is snowballing quickly. It's over $17 billion right now. The time now that we need to do is reduce spending, and public sector salaries in Alberta are a very big part of that equation, and teachers' salaries are not exempt from that. So we think when you're looking at cutting costs, this is a great area where you can find savings without directly impacting students, and so that's why we would recommend it to the government at this time.
So what would you like those salaries to look like?
Sure. So we're recommending a rollback of 10%. So at the top level for teachers in Alberta, that would bring it from around $99,000 to a little over $89,000, which would still put them over $4,000 above the national average at that level for teachers. So we think that this is a good number to ask for because, of course, it does represent a meaningful spending reduction, but at the same time, it allows Alberta teachers to still be very, very well compensated relative to the rest of the country in terms of the provinces and also the rest of the world, because let's not forget that Canadian teachers overall are the third best paid in the entire world, and currently Alberta teachers are sitting at the top of that pack.
Well, Jonathan, I'm sure you have an opinion on that, along with the Alberta Teachers Association. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think it's interesting that Paige is trying to advance a parity argument, because when you compare Alberta to other jurisdictions, there's a lot of things that are different. For instance, Albertans pay $8.5 billion less in taxes than the next lowest tax jurisdiction in the country. Similarly, the spending in Alberta, when you compare it to household income, is below the national average. So I think it's inappropriate for Paige to suggest that there's a spending problem here in Alberta.
Mm-hmm. And do you believe that right now teachers are being paid a fair wage?
Well, I think that the way that we come about with salary figures for teachers or for a lot of different employee groups is through negotiations. And we're going to have negotiations coming up in the next little while with government and school boards, and we hope to have a fair and honest conversation at that table about a wide variety of things. We're going to have to talk about teacher compensation. We're going to have to talk about teachers' conditions of practice, including class sizes and complexity of our classrooms.
Has this idea about accepting a wage rollback even been thrown out there?
Well, at this point, we're at the very initial stages for the bargaining process, and that means that we start by listening to our members. We're going out and we're consulting with members, and we're hearing from them about what their priorities are, and so I don't want to presume what they're telling us at this point, and I don't want to get in the way of negotiations either.
Now, Paige, you mentioned earlier that this wage rollback will be the way to have least impact on students. How exactly do you mean that? Like, do you think that that wage rollback wouldn't maybe affect the teachers at all?
Well, of course, a wage rollback would impact teachers in that their wages would be rolled back, but it wouldn't impact students. There's a great C.D. Howe Institute study that found that no correlation, looking at teacher compensation, no correlation between teacher compensation and student performance. So we know that it's not impacting students in the classroom. It's a great way, of course, when we're talking about reducing teacher debt. And I think that's the most important thing here, because we do need to think about the kids here. We need to think about future generations. And what we're doing right now, spending at the levels that we're spending, is we're passing the buck onto future generations. We're getting the things that we want, large salaries being a part of that, especially in the government employee sector, and teachers are no exception from that. We're getting the things that we want, and we're passing the bill to future generations, who then are going to have a more difficult time paying for the public services that we value today, like education. They're going to have a harder time paying paying for that down the road. So of course it's going to lessen that burden and give more flexibility there, but it's also going to give more flexibility in terms of hiring new teachers, getting more textbooks. These are things that might be necessities in our education system, but money doesn't grow on trees. Money has to come from somewhere. And so we do need to reduce our spending. I would challenge Jonathan on the assertion that Alberta's spending is in line with the national average, or is because of course per capita it's over $1,500 more than the national average in terms of our overall picture of our government spending. But a big part of that is bloated salaries, and teachers are no exception from that. So I think we should reduce spending in this area, not hurt the kids, not impact students, so that we can actually have a little more flexibility on the things that do directly impact students.
I think it's really interesting that Paige wants to talk about future generations and wants to talk about not impacting students. The fact of the matter is we've had an incredible student population boom in Alberta here. Over the past 6 years, we have had 82,000 additional students brought into the population here in Alberta. And at the same time that the rate of student population has grown by 15%, the teacher population has only grown by 5%. And so, and this growth is going to continue. So I would love to hear Paige talk about the desire to increase spending in education to make sure that all students are supported, but she won't, because it's not the mission of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They talk about cutting spending, they talk about cutting taxes, cutting wages, cutting jobs. Cut, cut, cut. That's what the Canadian Taxpayers Federation does.
Response, Paige?
Like I said, money doesn't grow on trees. We've got a $10.4 billion deficit. That's just operational. That does not even include infrastructure spending. We need to reduce spending in many areas in our government, and teacher salaries simply cannot be immune from those spending reductions. We as a province need to tighten our belts together. You're talking about cuts. Guess where there have been cuts? In the private sector. Today in the Financial Post, over 100,000 layoffs in the oil patch. So these are the people, I heard you earlier today talking about this, and then again, you are not ruling out asking for an increase in teachers' salaries. You think, you know, it's crazy to ask for a rollback when our salaries are the highest in the country for our teachers, and the country is the third highest in the world for our teachers. You won't rule out asking for an increase. Now, I don't know how you can justify that when we've got over 100,000 people that have been laid off in the oil patch. Those are the taxpayers. Those are the people that are going to bear this burden. And while everybody else in the province is facing these tough economic times, we can't have some sort of golden bubble shielding the government employee sector, including teachers, from these economic realities. We need to pull together. We've done it in this province before. We can do it again, and we need to see some reason, I think, a reasonableness from people at the negotiating table to realize that we're all in this together, to realize that we all have to cut back during tough times if we don't want to compromise service for future generations, and we don't want to levy this huge burden on taxpayers today.
I think teachers are very cognizant of the economic situation, and we look forward to having conversations with the government and with school boards at that negotiation table. But we're not going to rule anything out. We're not going to rule out conversation regarding to compensation. We're not going to rule out conversation regarding to those conditions of practice and the classroom conditions. At this point, it's just too early to do that. We need to sit down at the table and have those conversations.
A quick final question for the both of you. Jonathan, you can go first. What has been the reaction to this suggestion that you've heard from teachers today?
Again, you know, at this point, I don't want to get in the way of the different data that we're collecting. We're collecting information from teachers and perspective from teachers through a variety of means, and we're doing that over time. So we're not going to get too concerned about the blip of the reaction today because of what the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has said. Okay,
and Paige, mostly positive or negative reaction for you?
You know what, I think that these are tough conversations that need to be had, but when we're looking at the reality over the past several years in the province, prior to the last contract negotiation, the one before that, teachers saw over 5 years an almost 23% increase in their salaries. I think when faced with those numbers, and then we see what's happening in the private sector today with cuts and layoffs, I'll give you another example. CNRL reduced their salaries by 10% so that they didn't have to lay people off. That's the real world. Those are the decisions that you have to make in the real world. I think that a lot of the people that I've heard from today and continue to hear from recognize those economic realities and say, okay, yep, this is a tough conversation that we need to have, but the time is now if we don't want to pass the buck on to future generations.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you. Very lively and interesting discussion tonight. Paige MacPherson is the director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation in Alberta, and Jonathan Teghtmeyer is with the Alberta Teachers Association.